You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Hello and welcome to Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about Jiu-Jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a purple belt who trains at Alliance Jiu-Jitsu, located in Edina, Minnesota. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Gawlik.
How you doing, Lamar?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, sir?
Blessed to be alive, my man.
Always. Well, first and foremost, I would like to, give my thanks for you, being on the show today.
Thank you as well.
Yeah, not a problem. So, if you want to go ahead and, formally introduce yourself again, by all means, and let's hear your jiu-jitsu journey.
Yeah, so I'm a purple belt Alliance. Started off in the Chicagoland area. Now train under Damian Hertz. And, I started jiu-jitsu back in 2016. I actually retired from boxing after 14 years for a few reasons. I had lost a significant other. And, when I retired from striking, I kind of realized, I was 35 and at the time, and I was like, man, I gotta figure this out. I gotta get into something that's going to let me let loose.
Mm-hmm.
The demons we wrestle with on a daily.
Oh yeah.
A year after that, I had lost my baby sister, so jiu-jitsu was something that was essential to my life. This wasn't just a hobbyist thing. So as I trained through the ranks, I was starting to learn that when they say, "Oh, jiu-jitsu is like a chess match," it really is. I mean, even if someone's not pausing, waiting for you to move, you're trying to undo what they're doing. And I just found myself falling in love more and more with the sport, because what it enabled me to do was unravel the mess that was going on in my own personal mind.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's out there that's listening, that's wondering, is this a sport for me? I can tell you, jiu-jitsu is not for the weak-minded.
No.
But it is certainly, if you feel like you're maybe not the strongest guy or the fastest guy, this sport is definitely for you. It teaches you to be an equalizer in the field of battle.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been athletic. I've always been kind of a brute. When I was striking, my friends called me Vanilla Gorilla, just because of my strength and my speed. But man, was I humbled that first week of jiu-jitsu. I went up against this 120-pound female black belt. She double arm-barred me, and I was like, yo, this is the sport for me. So if someone like that can neutralize me, I knew right then and there that's where I needed to be. So, yeah. But that's what started my jiu-jitsu journey. It was actually loss, losing the essential parts of what makes a man, significant other,
Yeah.
So, yeah. What got you? What started you? What? I haven't heard your story too much. What got you into it?
Well, first and foremost, sorry for your loss. And you said your significant other and you said your baby sister, correct?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So definitely my condolences on that. But
Thank you.
what started me was it was a random trip to GNC. Met a guy there who who became my Uber best friend. Who because he trained before I started. So he's the one that got me like into the into the door of doing jujitsu, and I've been hooked ever since, man. It's been 5 years. Well, it's coming up on 6 years. It'd be 6 years in April, at the end of April. So I've been just chugging forward ever since then, man. But I think as of like, I've always had like a spot, it like as time went on, the spot for it kind of in my heart kind of grew. And as of recently, like I've always loved the sport. Well, I'm gonna say it's the sport, but I always loved the martial art. But now, like I literally felt in love with the martial art now.
Right.
Because it's like, I don't want to do nothing else but jujitsu.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Cause like cause I'm doing a tournament on Saturday, and I've been pushing myself so hard to get ready for this tournament, man. And I'm just proud of myself for doing that much, regardless of regardless of what happened in the tournament, cause the registration closed I want to say last night. The 3rd. So right now I think it's only four brown belts that's going to be in this tournament. So I'm assuming what they're going to do is they're just going to just group us all together, and we're just going to do a 4-man tournament. So
okay.
Yeah, so regardless of what happens, man, I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited.
Well, the nice thing, and I've competed all my life, is by all technicality, if they're a brown belt, you're a purple belt, right?
No, I'm a brown belt.
Oh, okay. I thought you were a purple belt for some reason. I was going to say, I've competed with upper belts before. It's always nice to be considered at the disadvantage and to pull the win,
Mm-hmm.
I competed more as a white belt than I did at any other belt. And blue belt, I got my blue belt right before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was crippling for me.
Yeah.
So I found myself going to, speakeasies and getting the training in that way. And there was a lot of us training still,
Mm-hmm.
in someone's house or something or the other. A lot of us felt robbed because it was our mental health management system.
Oh yeah.
So, I think the remarkable thing about jiu-jitsu is you ultimately find your tribe. I have bear witnessed to 3 major exceptions in my life where the first time when I was in boot camp and we all got our civilian clothes back on, and this was in 2001, and you had your skater, you had your headbanger, you had your gangbanger, you had your your rocker, you had your punker, you had all these clashes of people. That you had your farmer, you had your suburban kid, you had all these clashes of people that banded together to get through a very tough time, which was boot camp at
Mm-hmm.
the time. And you're like, I was friends with these guys. Like coming out of high school, you have your clique because they're like you.
Mm-hmm.
But the eye-opening experience with boot camp was you found your clique that weren't like you.
Yeah.
And I found the same thing. I grew up in Aurora, Illinois. It's the part of Aurora I grew up in. It was, if you look up Aurora, it's heavily mixed, Hispanic, white, black. But I was boxing. And so you go to these boxing gyms, and it's Hispanic and black. There's really no white guys there.
Mm-hmm.
So a white guy walks in there, and who's the target? And I'm cool with it because I've always been an underdog. I've always been looked at as an underdog. So I feed on that. But it was fun, man. Like going through the boxing ranks, and you get considered one of the family, and then you go to jiu-jitsu, and you've got people that believe different politics. You got people who believe different ways of life, culture, and things they've been through, and we're all wearing the same gi, And then after the end of class, you either grab a beer, out here in Minnesota, we got THC drinks, and I happen to own a dispensary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we built a bar in our dispensary. So, some of the guys come through and they kick it that way too, So jiu-jitsu has a way, and I'm sure other people have experienced in other realms, but if they're looking for it, jiu-jitsu has that way of bringing that back, that camaraderie back.
Oh,
that
yeah, for
undiscovered. Sure. And the other thing, like I'll meet new people through the gym. There's like, I'm just checking it out. The best description I give these people is, you remember when you were 5 years old and you were wrestling with the neighborhood kids and you just had the time of your life? And if you don't remember it, but you look back and you remember just good times with the fellas at the neighborhood, well, that's what jiu-jitsu is.
Mm-hmm.
You're just being a kid wrestling around with your brothers and sisters, So when you put that in perspective and you see people smiling being choked,
yeah.
It's a hell of a way of looking at it when it's like, oh, I'm just being a kid at this, I rolled with my coach today, Damien. He's been training for almost 30 years. Nothing, you can't put anything past this guy.
Right.
But, you do stupid thing, like as a purple belt, you're considered an advanced player, but, I call BS on that in a lot of ways, because it's, I still do dumb stuff, it's like I was trying to, Damien's probably 220, 230, he's muscular. And I'm trying to perform like catch wrestling moves on this guy. And it's like, what am I even doing? Why am I doing that? I need to stick to my game plan here,
Mm-hmm.
But I think I kind of segue. What I'm really trying to say here is that it's a hell of a sport. It's so much fun. I feel like a kid when I do it. There's nothing that brings me back to just, taming the lion that's within, and I encourage everybody at least try it for 3 to 6 months. Just give it that.
Just give it that. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, that's kind of my view on jiu-jitsu and why I think it's really healthy for everybody.
Yeah, man, I can't do nothing but agree with that. 'Cause like you said, back when COVID hit, I was I was a four stripe blue belt. I think I just got my 4th stripe on my blue belt when COVID hit. Then that few weeks that we were off, came back, tested for my purple belt, damn near killed me. But I can't. I was in a better place mentally back then, but like now, man, if we had a shutdown now, I would lose my marbles, man. I would lose my mind if I wouldn't be able to train today.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm with you. And hopefully the public is more aware of things that are going on now, that if they attempted to shut us down, we would be eager enough to stand against it,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that with jiu-jitsu, it's taught me to be much more calculated in my decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it enables you to be more independent. Now, I'm former military, and it doesn't matter what my political view is of things, but I can tell you that as I've aged in my life, the more independent I've actually become. And jiu-jitsu has only made me wiser in those calculated decisions.
Right.
So, freedom to me is also identifying with jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu is ultimately just you bringing who you are to the table. And to me, I look at that as freedom. I mean, I identify so much with jiu-jitsu being free and freeing you.
Oh yeah.
Because you're escaping your, the thoughts in your head. You're leaving the BS at the door. Dude, I mean, as a purple belt, I still find myself getting claustrophobic when someone's on top of me. But I have to just close my eyes and count and just be like, look, man, you're in this and you're not going to die.
Right.
It's okay.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine, and and I'm a 40-year-old man telling myself this, right? So it's we all have these same fears, and some people are like, oh, I don't want to be smothered by somebody. Okay, play the long game, be open guard, take their back, so you can see what's going on.
Exactly.
There's no excuse, man. There's no excuse. I mean, if anything, anybody should take up any combat sport. But the most riveting thing is, in my eyes, is the one that's just freed my mind is jiu-jitsu, for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. Like, I talk about that all the time, man. Like, just... Yeah, like I said, it's so freeing and relaxing and so euphoric. It's like no matter what the day is like been thrown at you, it's like you put that, you step on those mats and you put that gi on. It's like, yeah, we'll worry about that later. It's time for jiu-jitsu. So yeah, that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on how long you train, it's blissful, man. And it's like, man, I don't want to go home. I got like another hour in me, so
yeah.
Cause like getting ready for Saturday, we just had like a competition style roll yesterday in class, and my instructor was like, how long is your rounds? And I was like 5 minutes. I thought there was 4, but come to find out they're 5-minute rounds. And he's like, all right, well, we're just gonna roll for that. We're gonna roll for that. That long. If you get tapped, get up, keep rolling. And man, I was so dead, dude. Yesterday, like leaving class, it took me forever to get in the house. I was like, yeah, my body is done. It was so beat up, man.
I saw your post about being sore.
Yeah, I was like, my everything hurts.
I mean, I feel you. With the dispensary, there's one thing that I can encourage without me putting the plug in for my products.
No, go ahead.
There's one thing that I can tell you is I've studied the hemp plant religiously.
Okay.
It's not just me. I've got a partner. She's done the same thing. She's just a beast at the science of understanding the plant. I've got another partner, a buddy of mine. He's in the same realm, and we ended up formulating this balm. It's called a quick fix balm. You can find it on Natrium.com. And what we discovered was the rest of the industry will try to sell you a 2,500 milligram balm and say, oh, this is the solution, when really what they're trying to give you is all the minor cannabinoids that are effective in it. And so what we did was we took the minor cannabinoids by themselves and made it into a balm. So instead of paying $130 for a balm that's 2,500 milligrams, you're paying $40 for a balm that is 10 times more effective because it's just the minor cannabinoid that's meant for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm bringing that up because not mainly for a plug-in, but being 40 years old, my hands get beaten up. My body feels sore. It takes longer to recover. We start seeing the decline of testosterone in our body,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't emphasize enough that taking these protocols by using these balms, go out there and try to find a good balm for you. If it's, if give mine a try. If mine doesn't work, find something, get your testosterone checked, because there's one thing that I feel like a lot of us men that are at our age, we're fighting, and the main thing is remaining that lion in the den.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been nice is that boxing isn't forgiving. Jiu-jitsu is much more forgiving than boxing. I couldn't get in the ring. I could probably move and slip punches and stuff, but I couldn't do what I used to do. In jiu-jitsu, I could at least, you know how they have old man jiu-jitsu, you know, I could at least move like that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's nice that the pace of jiu-jitsu can purely be determined by how you communicate with your partner. I rolled with somebody today, and it got pretty intense. And I stopped and I was like, "Hey, man, just communicate with me. If you feel like it's getting a bit too much." And he agreed. He said the same thing to me. And we weren't realizing that we were turning it up one-on-one to each other each moment. Mm-hmm. And we both had to break away and be like, "All right, cool. Like, let's just start over." And we're like, "Hey, no hard feelings. You know, we're homies. We're brothers, you know." But that's the point. It's like this sport is so much more forgiving because when you're boxing, you got a mouth guard on, you got a headgear on, you know, like right. You can't even hear your coach yelling at you, you know. See, I stand behind this sport, man. I will do this till the day I die. I actually train with a guy named Pat Worley. If the name doesn't sound familiar, highly suggest people Google that name. He is a grandmaster in karate. He's trained with Chuck Norris. I mean, he is the real deal martial artist.
Okay.
And he's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So, you know, he's in his mid-70s, and he's just a pure joy to train with because he's out there still competing.
Wow.
Right? He's out there still putting it on people. And you just got to tell yourself, like, if this is what you want to do, you can do it. The sport will allow you to do it. I mean, it's not like, you know, a lot of these tournaments, they do open age or they open this and open that. There's brackets for it. There's gender separation. There's weight separation. There's belt separation. There's age separation, you know? So this sport is fitting for all. It can be. Even I had a guy the other day tell me, "Oh, well, I want to get more in shape." And I was like, that's not the answer. What you should be worried about is, how do I figure out how to shrimp properly? How do I figure out how to, you know, break guard properly? Not how much weight do I weigh today? You know, jiu-jitsu will teach you to focus on the right things. Again, this comes back to the calculated decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know what your take is, like who it is that's, you know, really helped you propel in this sport, but it's these older guys that were former martial artists in other fields. You know, they switched over and took it in stride, you know, and you see this and it's like, this sport is meant for people at all ages, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, yeah, and I feel like you kind of land at, you know, it may not happen like right away, but I can honestly say that I landed at the school that I was supposed to land at.
Mm-hmm.
Cause, you know, when I started training, you know, met my instructor, he's a bigger guy. So he has, you know, he's heavy man jiu-jitsu, old school, you know, grind, you know, smash pass jiu-jitsu. That's all we learn. That's all we know.
Yeah.
That's all we teach, you know. And our, you know, his instructor, Master Joe Moera, met him a couple times. He's like an uncle now. You know how many times we've met and talked, and, you know, having privates with him and him breaking stuff down even more. And then one year we met his master, Grandmaster Francisco Mansour, who's, you know, he's up there in age, but he's still rolling.
Yeah.
He's still rolling. He's still moving. And like he's, in his 20s and 30s. And just seeing that and just been, following, so many like, jiu-jitsu groups and seeing people in their 70s and 80s getting their black belts. And it's like, what other sport do you know when you got people, 70, 80 years old still out there training, like, training hard,
Yeah.
Like, you don't see that nowhere else.
Right.
Like, yeah, granted, jiu-jitsu does take a toll on your body, but, with the right, right diet, right, cool down, and, you properly taking care of yourself, you can do this for a very, very long time.
Right.
And
absolutely.
And that's the goal. Like, I want to do this for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. There is one thing that I wanted to share. That I had forgotten about how I got started into jiu-jitsu through the process. And I think you're going to find this to be quite hilarious because the jiu-jitsu world knows about this particular story. And I happen to be part of it, and I don't tell enough people, not because I'm embarrassed, because I find it quite hilarious. But there was a gentleman who made jiu-jitsu times, and he was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and he had come to Rocky's dojo. Rocky is a world-renowned. He's a master in karate. He's also a well-renowned and respected former kickboxing fighter, and he travels all over the world reffing and coaching. Okay. So the guy is very astute, has a high level of respect. He's had a dojo for like 40 years. Okay. So he ends up going to Russia at the time, where he let this guy come in that has a purple belt and just kind of introduce people to jiu-jitsu, the concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I had attended this class, and I had taken karate before, so I knew this wasn't right when I saw it. But this guy sits down, tells this story about how his dad was a former Marine and all this jazz, and that he won't let another man promote him. He's going to promote himself. So this guy promotes himself from purple belt to brown belt.
Okay.
And yeah, and the jiu-jitsu world went bananas.
I remember this story. Story.
Yeah, I was sitting in that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was there. And it was my first class. And I'm like, I know this ain't right. In my head, I'm like, I gotta talk to Rocky after this. And so I spent a good month trying to recover Rocky's, like his respect from the community of the martial art community, because this guy did this when Rocky had to fly to Russia to ref a fight. He didn't tell Rocky he was doing this.
Oh,
and because Rocky would have been like, so he did this under the nose, like behind his back, under his nose, sort of thing. And Rocky got back, and he's like, "What's going on? I've got like a 3-star review when I had a perfect 5. Like what?" And I was Rocky's boxing coach. We had a boxing team out of there, and I transferred out to Alliance Jiu-Jitsu in Chicago to be their striking coach. And I was telling him, like, look, hey, I'm not leaving because of this, but I'm telling you, this is what happened. And that's how that whole first interaction of my jiu-jitsu experience happened. And I don't tell the story enough because I think it's funny, but it does put it should have put a stain, but it didn't, because I knew it was more than that,
That is hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. If nobody knows what I'm talking about, take some time to research that story. It's quite hilarious.
It is hilarious. So, just to, because when I seen the video, I seen it on McDojo on Instagram, and I shot the message to like my instructor and a couple guys. I was like, y'all won't believe what I just saw. And yeah, the guy is just casually sitting there. He's rambling on about something. And then he takes his purple belt off and puts a brown belt on. I'm like, because once again, I didn't know the full story. So I'm sitting here looking like, is this his school? Or is he just just going to like disregard his instructor and be like, yeah, no, I'm going to give myself a brown belt. I don't care who says what. I was like, how's he walking out of his gym alive, man?
Yeah. Well, how he walked out alive was the owners were in Russia.
Right.
And I was the only other coach. I was a striking coach. I wasn't just boxing. I wasn't anything else. And I knew it was wrong. So when he ended that class, Rocky was back like 2 or 3 days later, and there was no class after that. He was, it was the following week had to come around for that next class. So I knew I had to wait to get a hold of him. So how he got out of there is he got lucky. He was calculated. Jiu-Jitsu taught him to be calculated, right?
Yeah,
right. to be on another venture of promoting himself, creating his own lineage, I guess, so yeah. So I think about that, and but then I had the pleasure, I've met Jeff Glover multiple times. Okay. I've talked to Pete the Greek, and I'm a big wrist locker. I let my wrist locks lead into Kimuras and open up arm bars as opposed to going the opposite way. Just because when people feel like they're wrist locking, they're throwing their arm back.
Right. Trying to straighten that
arm. Yeah. So, studying stuff like that has really changed my game. I've never been big on arm bars or triangles. I've always been a guy that just studies more position and, smothering somebody and then, getting the choke. But I've really enjoyed the dynamics of exploring this other parts of jiu-jitsu, like what they call the 5%, So, if you're a white belt out there and someone's wrist locking you, shame on them.
Right. Shame on them. You don't wrist lock or heel hook white belts, man.
Yeah. I'm not going to say I haven't done it, but
right. do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I like to give my excuses. I'm my own biggest hypocrite.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, no. So I'm not sure what kind of game you enjoy playing, but I'm a pressure guy. I love pressure. I love passing that way, breaking people down. I love tying the legs up and climbing up. That's all me right there. Half guard's probably my favorite position, bottom half.
I'm really trying to work more, be more efficient in bottom half.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's so crazy. Like, out of this whole time I've been training, I wait to brown belt to try to develop a game, and it's like I should have started this back in like late blue, early purple. But like I wait to brown belt to be like, yeah, let's kind of figure some stuff out right now. So,
well, you're obviously doing something right.
Right, obviously, right? But
yeah,
it's gotten better. It's definitely gotten better.
I gotta say, like when I'm in deep half, the one thing that I enjoy the most, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, but you get them in the Kimura trap, you let them pass, and you swim your head under them. And the Kimura forces them to roll on their back, and then you're on top holding the Kimura. So if you haven't seen that move, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I can see it, but yeah, you can definitely send it to me. I love to see that.
Yeah, but man, it's a hell of a position to get in, because in their head they're like, what just happened? And they're Kimura'd. So it's great, man. And that's like, when people are reaching in for the collars when they're trying to pass, that's when I'm trying to activate that wrist lock game, So yeah, we've got a few wrestlers, D1 wrestlers in our gym. Minnesota, this whole Midwest area, it's notorious for having like a huge wrestling background.
Oh, wow.
And so I feel like when I go to other states, like you can tell certain states have different jujitsu,
Yeah.
And when I moved up here from the Chicagoland area, I was like, man, it's a lot of Slavic people here, like very tall, big people. I feel I'm 6 foot and I'm small, in my gym.
Wow.
I'm 220. I'm small in my gym, So there are smaller guys, but like the average dudes are 220 and up. So it's crazy to me when I go to other states, like the average person's shorter, the average person's bigger, and the jujitsu that's played within that is different too, But I've enjoyed this journey, man. I've enjoyed this path. I'm kind of personally going through some tough times right now, but I went and trained and I felt good about it. And, it just helps you navigate day by day.
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Wouldn't be able to survive without it.
Yeah. Yeah. There wouldn't be many other welcoming sports.
No, I don't feel like that, because I don't feel that way at all about it, because I haven't, like, I've met a couple, like, martial arts instructors when before I ended up joining the gym that I'm at now. I went to go look at other gyms, and they'll give you that little interview, like, give you the tour of the school, ask what what you're training for, and blah blah blah. And the first thing they were they're showing me, like, yeah, we got this guy who's the amateur champion, this guy just went pro, that guy just went pro, so you just gotta work hard, and you can get there. And I was like, yeah, that's cool and all, but I don't want to fight. I just want to train. I want to learn a martial art. I want to get healthier, but all in all, I just want to train the martial art. And surprisingly, a lot of people was like, oh, well, you can still train, but you're not going to get much out of it if you don't compete.
Right.
So I was like, oh, all right then. And like I said, it's a lot of gyms that do that, or a lot of, like, instructors and trainers that I've met just out in the street asking them questions, and that's all they've been about. Like, yeah, if you ain't trying to compete, don't talk to me. So it's like, oh,
that's a shame.
Yeah,
that's a shame.
But my art school is like, we don't force you to compete. If you want to compete, you go ahead by all means. But if you don't, then just train.
Right.
So.
Well, you actually bring up a really important point. And when I was boxing, they were so hard on you for competing.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment you told them you were ready to compete, they were putting you in with the Jaguars, the Hyenas, and the Wolves,
Mm-hmm.
and you were just getting tore up. And like at some point you've got to evaluate. It's kind of like a business transaction, right? It's like,
yeah,
where's my ROI on this?
Right.
And not to say you don't learn from competing, because personally, if you compete, you learn more about yourself in those matches than you probably do in weeks of training.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're under hard duress, you're grinding it through, you're explosive, then you're timed, then you're moving light, then you're trying to be calculated. But that doesn't mean training doesn't offer that.
Right.
So for people who feel like, and I experienced that, because my gym in Chicago was heavy into competition. Like, they felt a lot of the same way. It's kind of toned down since COVID. But, if gyms are doing that, you've got to think of it as like a business transaction still. Like, you're not just, we get that people love this sport, but if this is a business, you have to open up to the 9-to-5ers, because what ends up happening, and it happens everywhere, some of those 9-to-5ers find that fire. And next thing you know, You got someone who's, I mean, it happens in boxing a lot, where these guys go pro at 25, never had an amateur fight, end up a world champion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the same thing is applied with any other sport. Some guys are just late bloomers.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's out there listening, I would say if you run into a gym like that, chalk it up for what it is. And if your dedication is 9 to 5, there's nothing wrong with that. But you may find that fire, you know, and that's okay too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a willing testament to that. Like, I've trained this long. I was like, no to competing. People would ask me like, oh, you know, you compete or anything like that? Nah, I just like to train. Did one tournament and got hooked, and now I'm like, yeah, I'm already signed up for 3 for this year. I'm training I'm training even harder than I was before, and it's like, you know, that new spark has been lit. So yeah, I encourage everyone to try the sport, even if you're not even if you're going in it with one thing in mind, like, okay, you're just doing it just to, you know, find something to get in shape, take your mind off of whatever. You don't know what it might turn into.
Right.
But, you know, you can't hold on to that like, I don't want to do this because of XYZ. Like, nah, it's a chance that it may be that way, but there is also a chance that it's going to be completely different than what you think it is. So there's nothing wrong with just going out there and giving it a shot.
Yeah, and you know, speaking on just the overall challenges of jiu-jitsu, just even beyond gyms, the fact that at every belt you run into ruts where you'll go a couple months where you'll be like, I'm not getting any better.
Mm-hmm.
Those are turning points. And those are really the moments that define you as a jiu-jitsu hobbyist or player, because it's up to you to continue training or not.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there. I've been there so many times, and I know everyone else has, where I'm sitting there, I was like, I'm not getting any better at this. I mean, I was a white belt for almost 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like, I like, in 5 years I got my purple belt. So like by 2.5 years I was a blue belt, and then next thing you know, I'm getting my purple, which I didn't even feel like I was ready for that. But I worked harder for that purple than I did for the blue belt, you know. But the challenges that came with it, outside of COVID, outside of switching gyms, outside of all those things, the ruts that you run into, those are pivotal moments to just grind through them, keep pursuing, just move forward. Don't stop. Train more, in fact. If you're not training, if you're too sore to train, study material. If you're not studying material, think about the movements. Just do the warm-ups then. I mean, dude, how many warm-ups do you end up doing and then you realize like, oh, now I know why I do this needle thread with the leg, because I'm trying to escape this, you know? There's always something to do.
Yeah, my bad. I was just about to say the same thing. Like, there's always something to do jiu-jitsu related. Like, you know, right now, like I said, my body is hurt. You know, from the top of my neck to my ankles, everything is like, have a little twinge or a little, you know, pain in it. But as soon as I get done with this episode, I got mats on the floor right now. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to, you know, do a couple drills or whatever. Like, I don't need a lot of space, but there's always room and time to do jiu-jitsu. Like, if you can't make it to the gym, you know, like you said, study material, you know, watch videos, take notes, like, you know, build up that list of questions you want to ask your instructor. When you finally do get to class, you won't feel so far behind because you took the time out to, you know, study, you know, off the mats.
Right.
So,
yeah, you know, I was going to say too, I mean, find find, like, if you're in a rut and there's a game that you like to play, find a guy that plays that game that does like fight to wins, or, you know, I mean, I hate to use the name Gordon Ryan as much as I love Gordon Ryan, but I'm not trying to be cliche. I'm just saying, find somebody like Nicky Rod's Body Locks. Like, maybe that's been your thing for a bit, but you feel like you're at a rut. Find a jujitsu player that's doing those things, and it'll open up a whole can of worms for you. You know,
Yeah.
Those ruts don't have to remain ruts forever.
No, they don't. I mean, because, you know, just thinking about what you were saying, it was a conversation I had with my wife a couple weeks ago. I was like, man, I just to think, like, these past 5 years that I've been training at this school. You know, walked in, I was like the lowest guy on the totem pole, you know, freshly new white belt. Didn't know what the hell he was doing. Everything seemed weird and awkward, like a whole different new language. And 5 years later, I am a brown belt who is also an assistant instructor. And I am the second highest ranked guy at my school.
That's awesome.
That's like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And to think, like, you know, like I said, I did a little bit of MMA, a little bit of boxing, a little bit of here and there at different schools, but to be fully committed to something, that's just, you know, just proof right there. Like, anybody, like, if you just step on the mats and you're determined to just do better than you did the last class, I promise you, man, you will love it, and you will be like, dang, man, I can't imagine life without it anymore.
Right.